The Sweet 16 is upon us. So Brady had the great idea of doing Sweet 16 comps to NFL teams. And I will start things off here. And obviously, it would not be a mock show if I didn't talk about the 49ers. So sorry, everybody. That's a part of this program now. Houston is the 49ers. And the reason I think this is because Houston is the most balanced of the number one seeds. They have a top 15 offense, a top five, defense. In fact, the Cougars are the only team that rank in the top 10 for offensive and defensive efficiency left in the entire tournament. They're balanced, but I would say that their identity is very much rooted in defense. They rank among the top in the country in various defensive categories. And their head coach, Kelvin Sampson, his philosophy going into the season, I read this today, was defense, rebounding, and culture plays. That to me sounds very much like Kyle Shanahan. Now, I know that we do say that Kyle Shanahan is an offensive mastermind, which I believe, but defense is really the fabric and the identity of the 49ers. Their biggest offseason move was strengthening their front seven with Javon Hargrave. And culture has always been a big deal with the organization. But what's Houston's biggest problem, guys? Health. Health is their biggest problem. They've got their stud guard. Yeah, Sasser, like you said, he's dealing with a groin injury. And then there's Jamal Sheed, also has a banged up knee. I think everyone can agree that Houston can go very far if they stay healthy, but that's the biggest question mark. And if that isn't the 49ers, I don't know what is.
I like this. I think this is actually a great comp, especially considering the most important, I shouldn't say the most important player, but maybe their best player. And in football, the most important position, the quarterback, obviously is a big question mark for the 49ers moving forward. Although no groin issues, at least not that we know of. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo had a couple with some, off the field activities going on there. But outside of that, I mean, Houston's got a clear path. They could easily be that team that you could see going to the NFC Championship game, or in this case, going to the Final Four, maybe winning it all, or maybe it doesn't end up working out and they can't get past that Final Four to the championship game. So, Moxie, this is a good one.
I'll leave my second one for later. Yeah, Brinson, what do you like?
I was going to say, too, that I think you could make the case that, like, Marcus Sasser, being the most important player for Houston and everything that he brings to the table, and just like, we think he's going to be fine against Auburn and not have a minutes restriction, but, he's still kind of banged up, right? Like the biggest, most important player on the entire team is maybe the biggest question mark for Houston as they move forward. And that's a great comp for the 49ers because the biggest, most important player on any NFL team is the quarterback. And that's the biggest question mark moving forward for the 49ers as well. So I think I called them both the 49ers, but the Cougars, 49ers, you get the point.
Same.
It's a weird kind of analogy here. But yeah, like if Sasser were to get re-injured, then I think like Trey Lance, it's very unlikely that the 49ers are going to win the championship, Yeah. So I think it's a really good comp. I do think the defense, like the offense, I mean, you like to think of the 49ers about offense, but maybe the defense thing is maybe this is correct. Cause I mean, the 49ers
they have the top defense. They've had the top defense, year and year after at least top five. And that's been exactly. That's been the fabric and that's been the identity of the 49ers, even with Kyle Shanahan. So that's my first comp. Brady, what's yours?
Oh, okay. I've got UConn. How about UConn? And I'm going to compare them to the New York Giants. First off, let me just say this. I'm a huge fan of the Hurley family. I love them. I think they're great coaches. They're energetic. I'm not sure what Will's saying, but I think he's also a huge Hurley fan, a Hurley family fan. He's going to sign basketball. Sign basketball. Here we go. I think there's so much fun to watch. Like they're a part of the entertainment when you watch UConn play, besides the point that they've got, three really, really good players in Sanago, Jackson, and Hawkins, who if you were actually going back coming into the season, like those are the three players that you could bet on were going to be starting for them. But outside of that, it was like freshman class. We'll see who shows up. They lost some guys in the transfer portal. And they put together a great season. They now look to be playing as one of the best teams, at least right now in the tournament, with maybe they've got a shot of surprising people and being a team that can make a run to go win it all. And that kind of reminded me of the New York Giants this year. Obviously, they've got guys that they kind of built things around with Daniel Jones at quarterback, Saquon Barkley. Then you look at the offseason move of trading for a guy like Darren Waller at tight end. They're starting to kind of construct like what is their cornerstones, their pieces of that offense, of how they can go about scoring. So I just kind of thought there was kind of some similarities in regards to maybe not much expectation for the Giants this past season. Brian Daboll wins Coach of the Year. The Giants go to the playoffs. Danny Dimes plays well enough to get a contract extension. They franchise tag Barkley, so they keep him. They still have that three-piece, and adding in Waller now too, moving forward. And you've got UConn on their side that's got three studs who are really leading the way offensively for this team, coached by a fiery guy in Dan Hurley, very similar to Brian Daboll, who's a fiery guy. So that was kind of my first comp. Really curious to see where UConn goes from here.
Well, and I think just in general, when you think of UConn's history, it reminds me a little bit of the New York Giants history as well, because they had that crazy run in 2014 where they won it all and they were a huge underdog. And the Giants have been underdogs before and won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. So I do feel like just in general, similarity. Where did Brinson go?
He's back. I think he's going to get a signed item, or maybe he took his glasses off. Brinson, are you okay?
Yeah, I was trying to find a picture of me and Bobby Hurley at Bobby Hurley's basketball camp when I was a little boy.
See, there you go. He's a big Bobby Hurley fan. Dan Hurley is the one that coaches, though, UConn. So.
Yeah, I'm aware of who coaches.
Okay, I'm just making sure. By the way, I did have a great conversation with Bobby Hurley and Chip Kelly when I was out in Arizona for spring meetings. This is like a few years back. And we were talking about horse racing, just three Irish guys talking about horse racing all together. It was actually pretty phenomenal to have the conversation with those guys. I digress, though.
What a weird trio. Like, that would be fun. Like, I mean, that you, Bobby Hurley, and Chip Kelly would be an underrated, like, I'll pick three random ass sports dudes that I want to go play a golf foursome with, and it would probably be a blast.
We had a great time. I probably had too much fun that night, as Chip Kelly would probably tell you. So, yeah.
Wait, so Chip Kelly seen you like hammer timed?
I was pretty, yeah. I mean, I had a number of drinks. It was a long day. I mean, it was a late night too. We were actually out there pretty late. So yeah. I'd say Bruce Feldman would probably co-sign that. I think he was there for part of this conversation.
Yeah, Bruce Feldman, underrated meathead.
Underrated meathead, also underrated party goer.
Yeah,
Bruce likes a good time. He likes a good time, low key.
Bruce can pound steak and pound Bruce. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. That's right.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
I like the UConn Giants thing though, because I think the Dan Hurley, Brian Daboll comparison really makes a ton of sense. Just because, like, and I heard somebody saying this on, I think it was the halftime show, the CBS halftime show, and I'm not sure who said it on there, but they were like, Dan Hurley's skill level of his team has finally gotten even with Dan Hurley's energy that he forces his team to have. And so, like, I think that is interesting because Brian Daboll brings this energy to the Giants. And it's different than Dan Hurley. It's not, it's intense, but actually maybe not that different, but a little burlier energy, right? A little burlier. But I do think that you're going to see the Giants skill set. We agree that Brian Daboll is burlier than Dan Hurley, right?
Yeah, no, agreed.
That's a fair.
Agreed.
That's in season Brian Daboll. Out of season Brian Daboll, he cuts weight. He gets right back down into shape. You'd be shocked. Like, he'll be a skinny guy come like summertime. Yeah, he used to do this every single offseason. Anytime I was around him, usually through the season, it's kind of rough, and then he cuts weight, gets right back down into weight.
Right. I mean, it's football life, man. But I think that we'll see the Giants. If you believe in Joe Shane and what he and Daboll are going to do, you're going to see the skill set for the Giants catch up to that coaching, that energy level. And when that happens, like, this Giants team has a chance to really make some noise. I mean, if you can be a Giants fan and, have questions about whether Daniel Jones is the guy, whether you need Saquon Barkley back, and all of these different things. But the reality is, if you don't feel good about where you are with the front office and that coaching staff, then you're crazy. Because, I mean, this team is set up to, if you believe in those guys, to be good in the near future. And I think that is a nice little comparison there.
Last thing I'd say is it does feel like when they're good, they pop up out of the woodwork everywhere. Like, Giants fans before this season weren't overly like boisterous about like talking about it. Like, same thing with UConn fans. When they start to make a run, they've got a good team. It's like West Coast, East Coast, UConn fans are popping up everywhere. Our guy, Rip Hamilton, you're seeing those jerseys pop out. Like, you start to see all of it and you're going, okay, like this is it's a much bigger fan base and pull than I think people realize. And Katie, really, for a lot of the reasons you said, I mean, they've had a solid tradition of basketball, and you talked about kind of winning as an underdog. Like, even was that the Kevin Ollie team, right?
Yes.
That was able to win one as I think a 10 seed. Is that what they were that year?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, I think it's a fair comparison.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
Okay. I will say that Alabama is
Mhm.
the Chiefs.
Ooh, well, yeah.
And
Number
the
1
reason
overall.
why is number one overall seed. It's actually just as simple as the number one overall seed, good coaching, best player in the tournament. But also I think here's the real comparison, especially particularly with last year, is that we came into this tournament, this NCAA tournament, being like, well, like everybody and their brother has Bama in their bracket.
Mhm.
People loaded up on taking Bama. There's tons of Bama people who have Bama in your bracket. And it's very possible, and I'm not saying that was a smart thing to do, but like it's very possible that just like we got Travis Kelce after the Super Bowl, he's like, no one picked us to win. It's like, well, plenty of people picked you to win, but like they were the best team from Jump Street. They were the best team all year. They handled their business. They took care of everything they needed to do, and they had a dogfight in the Super Bowl in which they beat the Eagles. I'm not sure if Billy remembers that, but they were the best team, and they were the best team in the country, in the league, in their best team all year. And it was sort of like, well, this is going to be this crazy ass tournament. It's going to be wild. There's going to be so many upsets. And there were, but when there's a bunch of upsets, it actually clears a pathway for the best team to waltz through and win the title. And I think that's what we could end up seeing with Alabama, just like we saw with the Chiefs.
I like it. I think it's fair. I mean, there's a lot of great comps there. It makes a lot of sense. They've got a talented roster too. You think about some of their best players. You can make the case maybe Brandon Miller's arguably the best player in college basketball.
Patrick Mahomes-esque,
right? I mean, now I'm not going to just talk about the off the field stuff,
right.
But obviously on the court, he's clearly one of the best basketball players this year in NCAA. So a lot of fair comps there, especially the coaching staff too. I love Nate Oates and the way he's kind of changed the game in college basketball. And I don't want to say like Andy Reid necessarily done that, but there's definitely some wrinkles and things that they've done in order to play to the strengths of his players. And I think what Nate Oates does extremely well, and Will, I don't know if we talked about this before, and Katie, I'm not sure if you know this, but the way they scrimmage, right? Like they get penalized for taking mid-range jumpers. Like he really tries to incentivize taking threes or taking layups and shots close to the hoop, higher percentage shots for two. And that kind of strategy is really, I think, bled into them being high scoring, them being able to win a lot of basketball games with the way they go about trying to find buckets and playing. And it seems like somewhat of a similar strategy to the Chiefs, who they're not trying to run the football. They're trying to throw in a variety of ways. They've created screens and these shovel passes and different ways of getting their playmakers the ball in high percentage, ways, or big chunks downfield. And you kind of feel like that's a very similar way in which both Andy Reid and the Chiefs, and then obviously Alabama and how they play.
I agree completely. And also like Bama, they're going to beat you with offense most of the time, but they can beat you with defense too. Just like the Chiefs, where it's like maybe the defense doesn't seem as good because they're so high scoring, and that just leads to other teams getting up more shots against them because you raise the pace level. Like with the Chiefs, a lot of times you can see them in shootouts, but that defense can make stops, can make plays, and can be the difference maker for them in the playoffs.